welcome in everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate that. We got a good show for you tonight. We got some more coaching hires we're going to go over, and then we also have three more rookie prospects we're going to break down tonight. Last week we kind of had more of the top tier, gym type of prospects. Today we kind of have a little bit more of like a high variance level of prospect where they could be really good, but also the possibility for them to flame out is definitely prevalent, which makes me a little nervous, especially where they're going to end up going kind of at the top half of rookie drafts. But before we get into all of that, Holler, how's it going, man?
It's going with or without me, but things are good, right? Couple more weeks, not a couple, like I think we're 7 more weeks out till my wife's due. So
Nice.
that's fun. Stressing out, you know.
Bet.
But we're good. Some of these coaching hires questionable. Also a little bummed about my Rams. But that's okay. They ran into a very good team. So plenty of things that they could have done better, but we'll see. Yeah, it should be. I'm hoping it's a good Super Bowl, but I could see it going south pretty quick. I just think the Seahawks are by far the best team this year.
Yeah, I could definitely see a scenario where Seattle just bullies New England. New England's kind of been like I don't want to call them a feel-good story because it wasn't that long ago they were in the middle of like a Super Bowl dynasty, but like they they won like 4 games last year, and then this year they're making the Super Bowl, so it kind of feels like an underdog, as much as that's like weird. But yeah, they've kind of gotten like a pretty lucky like slate. I mean, you can only play the teams in front of you, and like I get that, but like I mean, they played like Houston with a bad offensive line. They played Denver with a backup quarterback in a blizzard. Like they got a little bit of luck of the draw, but now they have a chance to prove that they deserve to be there. With Seattle, I think Seattle's probably the best team. They've been the best team in the league this year. So hopefully it's just a good game, right? Like that's all you can ask for.
Absolutely. We will see. But yeah, no things. Well, we're moving along. I'm missing the week in, week out already.
I know. I don't miss setting a lineup, but I do miss having a full slate of games to watch.
Yep.
I'll say that.
But yeah, diving into some more prospects, watching some film. So that's been fun. Really like this time of year, right? And I feel like there's a lot of question marks right now with these players and where they land and things like that. So it's, I think, a little more fun this year than usual.
Yeah, man. I think there's kind of going into the Senior Bowl is going on right now. I know the Shrine Bowl, I think was yesterday. There's a few players that I heard of that kind of popped at some of those that I'm looking at. So I gotta add them to my list of guys I need to get to watch. And there's like Ted Hurst, I think is one of them, like wide receiver from Georgia State. Looks like he's big and fast, which is always exciting. Puts him on the Raiders' radar.
Just depends on how his receiver. Just depends how his gauntlet is.
Dude, I know it. You've convinced me the gauntlet is the way. Yep. All right, we can get into some of the coaching hires here. So first up, Joe Brady gets promoted by the Bills. Before we get into Joe Brady, this just felt like so dysfunctional by Buffalo, right? It felt like it's like an owner that maybe was like the GM Brandon Beane had his ear, didn't get along with McDermott. They kind of emotionally fired him after a yet another like controversial, close loss in the playoffs. They didn't have a plan. They interviewed some people. People were like bowed out, and then they just said, "You know what? Let's just run it back with Joe Brady." It just feels like they didn't have a plan, and they just kind of had to band-aid something together. Dude, so I saw that, and I forget the name of the account that posted this, but there's like a list of NFL teams that have promoted a coordinator to a head coach, and the records are horrendous, right? It was like Freddie Kitchens with the Browns. He was there for a year. Gerard Mayo for the Patriots was there for a year. Antonio Pierce, Brian Schottenheimer for the Cowboys. He was the closest one to 500, arguably, at 7-9-1 this year. Ben McAdoo, Mike Mularkey, Dennis Allen, Dirk Cutter, Doug Marrone, and then Frank Reich kind of counts. Like he left Indy to go to Philly and then came back, but like none of them had a record over 500, right? And so obviously every situation is different, but it just feels like, man, I don't know. This feels like Buffalo might be sliding back into irrelevant, but we'll see.
Agreed. I just always question when they like their team didn't do well. We're gonna hire our head coach. Oh, and then we'll just promote the coordinator. Like to me, it
Right.
just not logical. Clearly, we're not GM and things like that. But also, I think the Browns are a bit dysfunctional, right? I think Josh Allen has masked it quite a bit. I think
Mhm.
their head coach before, I can't think of his name off the top of my head,
Sean
but
McDermott.
thank you, was also he's solid, right? He's not terrible. I think there's a lot of glaring holes with that offense, considering their wide receiver, they can't get that right, and then obviously everything that came out with Keon Coleman, but Joe Brady, right? So it's gonna be super awkward, and I don't know. I just think when there's too much, the owner is too much in hand. Like I think they're in over their head, and they don't know how to make the correct decisions, right? And so they just hire a GM that will just be like a yes man, and they just listen to the owner, and then uh, all crumbles.
Yeah, I will say, you kind of had the point that I was getting at. I was like, Josh Allen's masked a lot of the warts
Yeah,
on the Bills for a while. He's still there. He's not going anywhere, so that's nice. The scheme isn't changing. The players around him probably still aren't great. I'm guessing they're going to draft a wide receiver. I'm curious to see who they take because they might. There's a guy. We'll talk about him probably here soon. But Denzel
yeah,
Boston, it kind of fits the same stereotype as like Keon Coleman. I'm like, are they going to try to run it back and try to get the same receiver? I don't know. We'll see, dude. I think it'll be fine from like a fantasy perspective, but like from a
yeah,
real life, I
yeah.
would be nervous if I was a Bills fan.
Yeah, like think
But
about Schottenheimer, right? The Cowboys exceeded expectations, I would say, and it's mainly because of that offense, right?
yeah,
But like I did not expect anything really good out of that, and they were fine for fantasy terms, right? So I
yeah,
think Josh Allen, of course, is still going to be Josh Allen, right? I think it is a positive thing for him having Joe Brady still there, but I just think the overarching issues are from top down, right? That owner
yeah.
needs to step back. GM, they need a new GM. Like it's just a lot of you look at what they've talked about with Keon Coleman. It's just like this is crazy.
While he's still on the
Yeah,
team, mind you, and they're just dragging him through the mud
yeah,
about like how this poor kid who got drafted, right, is just like the reason that he broke up the three of them. It's like, what are we doing? Like this is
yep,
just way to like airing your dirty laundry, um, which no good can come from that. But um, the Steelers, they also made a head coaching change, right? So they fired Mike Tomlin. Well, I guess Mike Tomlin stepped down technically,
yes,
but then they go and hire Mike McCarthy. And I think the best way I saw this described was like someone was like, "This is like pooping your pants and then changing your shirt." And it's like, yeah, that's fair, right? It's just like, what are we doing, right?
yep.
Like, is he any different from
No,
Mike Tomlin? Like in any way, like he constantly underachieves. Um, I
I
don't get this one.
yeah, I don't get it either, right? I mean, the last time he was in the league, it was not good, right? And it seems like yes, they needed a new voice, but it seems like they're like, oh, let's hold on to Aaron Rodgers. Oh, I know who we should get. We should get Mike McCarthy, right? He knows him.
Mhm,
Rodgers will stay, right? And so I worry about DK Metcalf. We saw at the end of last year. And,
mhm,
I worry about Jalen Warren, right? Kenneth Gainwell came out of nowhere, so like I think that's
mhm.
what the Steelers are going to be. I don't really think we're going to be able to depend on the Steelers to be fantasy relevant.
I see, like, I'm torn because like, his teams have never been that great, but, like, his offenses have been okay
Fine.
for the
Yeah.
most part. I am interested too because, this obviously, he had the familiarity with Aaron Rodgers, but if I remember right, like, Rodgers is the one that ran McCarthy out of Green Bay, because towards the end of his career in Green Bay, because they didn't get along. So, like, do they is that water under the bridge now and they're gonna be fine working together, or are they gonna just try to piece it together with I don't know, Will Howard, or do they draft like Ty Simpson from
Well,
Alabama?
yeah, I
You
was
know
gonna
what I
say is
mean?
like,
Like, what are we gonna do? I don't
yeah, I think that just fits the bill right there. Ty Simpson, I think that, yeah, like at
like
back in the
Kenny Pickett all
first
over
or
again.
exactly right. And so, I think they don't have same as the Bills. They don't really have a plan, right? I don't think they expected Mike Tomlin to step down. I think there was might have like
Yeah.
mutual, but still. and then he's going to go out and hire, a defensive coordinator from the Raiders, right? I mean, the Raiders had a
Yeah,
fine defense, but
which
it's not
I
like
can tell
he's like
you
a
from experience, that's not a good decision.
yeah, like he wasn't. I just questionable decisions, right? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that Steelers have more talent to work with
Yes,
than he did in Vegas, but still, right? There's only so much that can do. Um, I don't know. We'll see how that one plays out. I am worried too. Like DK Metcalf too. He's the kind of receiver, like kind of that big frame receiver that like once like the speed starts to go, those guys fall off so fast.
yeah,
I know he just got a big contract, but they don't really have anyone else outside of him as like a legitimate like receiving threat. Like this offense could be just putrid. If
yeah.
Rodgers doesn't come back and DK hits the age cliff, like this offense could just be absolutely horrendous.
Yep. I do know, like, think it was Jeremiah's. I thought I saw him mocking a wide receiver to the Steelers. I could be wrong. Could have been.
Let's
I
see.
probably am wrong.
They did.
But
Yeah, he took Denzel
right,
Boston. I
okay,
had it up. Yeah,
yeah,
he took Denzel Boston, which
yeah. So, I mean, I don't really think it matters who they were to take. I think it all stems on the quarterback, right? And there's a lot of question marks
mhm,
there. Aaron Rodgers that old. I still am gonna feel that like the Steelers are not really going to be fantasy relevant, and I don't necessarily think it's from Mike McCarthy. I just think they need a quarterback, and I don't feel good about any of these quarterbacks really coming into the draft. Right? I think Mendoza's gonna be fine. We'll get to that, but I just don't like their
yeah,
best chance is Rodgers.
yeah, I think so too. I think their best chance at like a somewhat competent offense is Rodgers needs
Yeah.
to come back, um, and do Aaron Rodgers things. Staying in the division, the Baltimore Ravens they made a hire too. They let go of John Harbaugh, and they hired Jesse Minter, who was the defensive coordinator for the Chargers under John Harbaugh's brother Jim in LA. He also coached at Michigan for a while as the defensive coordinator. He also was a DB coach for the Ravens back in the 2018 to 2020 seasons. He was there with like Mike McDonald and that whole thing. One of the architects of that defense. I think this hire actually makes a lot of sense to me. I think Baltimore kind of got away from like their really good like defense and kind of like how their franchise has been built for the last like 20 years. So I think this one is a good hire. I am curious though, like what does this mean for Lamar? They haven't hired an offensive coordinator yet. That's a big piece, right? Like, what is the offense going to look like? Is Derrick Henry? He's still under contract there. Are they're gonna use him, or are they gonna keep funneling in Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell and whoever else it is? Like,
Keaton
um,
Mitchell, I hope. Not really.
yeah,
I mean,
Keaton
he
Mitchell's
he,
good,
he had yeah,
but but he's not Derrick Henry, right? And so,
correct. Yeah.
um,
Yeah, two pieces for me here. Like, I think it's a great hire, right? I believe, Mike McDonald is, obviously did really, really well with the Seahawks, right? Rebuilt that defense. I think this is going to be the same thing here. But in terms of fantasy relevance, I really think it's going to be important who they hire for the OC, and then will Lamar be fully healthy, which I think he will be, right? He just
mhm.
wasn't healthy when he came back, and you could tell when he was playing, right? So I think it will depend on who they hire, but I think Lamar is good enough to be able to still be, top 3 quarterback for fantasy terms. But I do hope they continue with Derrick Henry and bring in a good offensive coordinator, right? Because it's good when the Ravens are fantasy relevant.
No, for sure. Does Lamar have like a little bit of Kyler Murray to him to you? Like where he's got a little bit of like an attitude, or is that just me? Like,
I I think yes, right? I think there were a lot of issues with uh, John Harbaugh and him, right? I think that was a lot to do
yeah.
with it. But there was a like when you read into some like reports and things, it does seem a little bit of devious, right? And like
Hmm.
I do think obviously it gets to their head, but I think it will the new young head coach. I think Lamar will be fine.
Yeah, I hope that, a fresh face kind of helps, fix some of the attitudes that might have been going around and, everyone kind of gets a fresh start. We'll see. Because obviously Lamar's, he's a top, 2 or 3 quarterback in the league when he's healthy and
And
so we'll see.
And I do know Minter was there when they drafted Lamar, so he knows who he is.
Hmm.
Obviously, didn't he was defensive back, right? Obviously, but
Right.
this is not a brand new person. He knows who he is, right? He's been on the team
Right.
when he was coaching. So I think it is really good for Lamar as well.
I think so too. I think, yeah, like I said, I think like the scheme of who they bring in as offensive coordinator to kind of see what they're going to kind of run with is interesting, but we'll figure that out as it goes. And then also in the division, this entire division got new coaching staff outside of the Bengals, which in and of itself is hilarious. But
Yep.
Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, previous offensive coordinator, got hired to be the Browns head coach. Seems like I didn't even hear them put in like a request to interview for Monken. Like it seems
Yeah.
like everything I heard was that like candidates were just like withdrawing their name from the Browns, and then all of a sudden they hired someone. So, I don't know on this one, right? Like I don't know how he's going to be as a head coach, but he was a good offensive coordinator in Baltimore. I think kind of looking at what he did, right? So the 2 years prior to him getting there, Baltimore was kind of middle of the pack in offense, like 14th yards per play, 19th in points, kind of right around there both years. And then 2023, he gets there, um, gets his hands on Lamar offense. Lamar, the offense just changes a little bit. They jump up to third in yards per play, fourth in points. Then he was first in 2024. That was Lamar's MVP season, third in points
Yep.
scored. Then last year, they took a little bit of step back, still top 12, right? I obviously the quarterback isn't the same going from Baltimore to Cleveland, right? Like Shedeur Sanders is not Lamar Jackson. He's probably not even like a tenth of Lamar Jackson. But I think like schematically, the offense makes a lot of sense with, kind of a run heavy approach, right? They use multiple tight ends. Just kind of how the offense functions, I think makes a lot of sense. I think for what the Browns are, like Quinshon Judkins and Harold Fannin are probably the two pieces you're going to care the most about. I think those two will be fine. Outside of that, I don't know how much there's going to be. I also don't know if Monken's going to be there longer than like a year. So,
Yep.
I don't know, dude. What was your read on this one? It was kind of
Yeah.
took me by surprise.
Agreed. Yeah, I thought Schwartz was going to get the head coaching position, right? Just because everyone was pulling out of the head coaching interviews and
Yeah.
things like that, right? And so, and then obviously I was busy today, and so later when I checked, like Todd Monken, I was like, okay, this is whatever. But
Yeah.
thinking about it a little bit more, right? I think it's fine for the pieces that we do care about, like you said, Judkins and Fannin, right? And I still don't think Shedeur Sanders is really like he's going to have spike games because he can run the ball and things like that, but he's not a franchise quarterback, right? And so, I just think it's probably a stopgap, right, for a younger head coach that should come in and overhaul the team. But it's the Browns, right? They do
They
the
do this every
dumbest
couple
things.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that like we talked about the offense in terms of, what Todd Monken does is kind of what the Browns do, right? So it makes sense. So I also worry though, if their defense can't be as good as they are, and if they move on from Jim Schwartz, like I think that's not going to be good for the Browns in general, right? So their offense might like hurt more. I think their offense was okay because their defense kept them in games and stuff. They could still run the ball, things like that. If we are losing, obviously they still have Myles Garrett, but I think Jim Schwartz did a lot for that
He
defense.
did.
If he's gone, I worry about the offense being able to, flow well. They're going to have to throw a bunch, things like that.
That's the interesting thing too. I heard a report today, and who knows how true it is, but
Yeah.
I guess Jim Schwartz was pissed off and
Yeah.
basically went around the building saying goodbye to everybody and just deuced out. So it's like, man, I don't know. Like he was the thing kind of holding the Cleveland to like somewhat level of like functional. If the defense is bad, to go with a bad offense, like this could get ugly really fast.
I mean, obviously they have really, really good players on their defense, so I think their defense can still be good if they have a new defensive coordinator. But like, man, if I think their defense really kept them in like 90% of their games.
Oh, for sure. They won. I mean, they beat Green Bay on the back of the
Defense only. Yeah.
I will say the nice thing for Cleveland, so they have their pick in the first round. They have Jacksonville's pick in the first round at pick 24, and then they have pick 39. So they have 3 picks in the top 40 where they can infuse some talent. Hopefully, Monken gets a say in some of that and can get some like help offensively, maybe on the offensive line. Maybe I could go to wide receiver, maybe a second wide receiver. I don't know. Something to help Jerry Jeudy because he's really the only one, and I don't think
Oh,
Jerry Judy's all that good, right?
yeah, I don't
So
know. Don't have
honestly, they
anybody
could
can help
spend all
him.
3 picks on a wide receiver, and it still might not be enough.
Yep.
So, I don't know. We'll
I
see,
would,
man.
yeah, I would think they're going to go offensive line, right? And then probably they're going to get themselves a quarterback because they do that every year. I doubt it.
I was gonna
I'm
say
just like,
24 feels
but
like a great spot for Ty Simpson,
yeah,
doesn't it?
right.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Between 24
Yeah.
and 28, it's either the Browns or the Steelers are going to take Ty Simpson.
Right. Someone will grab him. Exactly.
But yeah, no, I mean, again, kind of like what we're monitoring with, the Ravens, like it will depend on who the offensive coordinator is. Obviously, I think
Mhm.
Munkin's going to be calling the plays, right? Just because he's an offensive mind. It's usually what happens, right? And so he'll have a lot of say. But again, I'm going to hold on to if Jim Schwartz is gone, I think that defense is going to have some growing pains, and there's going to be times where they're going to have Shador throw a ton, and that's not good.
Flip side, the defense is bad. It could be one of those situations that are just in garbage time all the time, and maybe some
Yeah,
fantasy points come from it because
it's
they're
possible.
down 3 scores. Maybe they pull a Blake Bortles and we get some
Yep.
points. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I
We'll
mean,
see.
if the reports are true with like people having to do like 8 hour, Greg in the
Yeah, that
chat
was
said,
nuts, dude. Like writing essays and
yeah,
like
insane,
taking
man.
I'm
Like
like, what are
if
they taking like the SATs too? Like, what
yeah,
are we doing, man? Like,
especially if you're a bad organization, your team is not that good. Like, man,
that's
I'll
the
take
thing.
I'll take
Like,
any good candidate, right? Like, let me see what they can
it's
do. Why are you pushing away some of the young minds in NFL, right?
it's
Think about the tree under Sean McVay. Like, come on.
it's not like you're like inheriting a nice like playoff roster with like a stable quarterback and like a good situation. You've been basically horrible for the
Yep.
last, I don't know, as long as I've watched football, they've been bad. They had that one year with Baker, they made the playoffs, but other than that, like they've been horrendous. You're just trying to make the job like the least desirable job possible, and like you succeeded.
Yep.
Um, I don't know, dude, kind of crazy, but we'll see. There's 2 head coach openings left. The Raiders and the Cardinals. The Raiders, it sounds like Clint Kubiak is going to be the guy. They can't like officially do anything until he's done with the Super Bowl. So we'll see. And then the Cardinals, I haven't really heard anything, so I don't know what they're going to do there. But
I just did a quick search on because I wanted to see who might be connected to Baltimore, and actually Davis Webb came up. I think that would be a good, like he did well. I think that would be cool. So we'll see. I think that's one of the top ones to monitor there. Who Minter picks for their the coordinator there.
yeah, so we shall see. All right, enough coachings. Let's get into some of the prospects here. Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State, comes in at 6'2", 200 pounds. So pretty good size, a little bit leaner. Looking at, as my Fez scores, right, he comes in like the 3rd best wide receiver. I think you have him 3rd as well behind Tate and Lemon, who we talked about last week. Daniel Jeremiah, he released his top 50 yesterday. He does a really good job too with some of his prospects and lists. He had him as his wide receiver 3, 15th overall, best prospect in his top 50. He did a mock draft on Monday where he mocked from 19 to Carolina, which makes a ton of sense. Kind of just looking at some of his numbers, right? They don't blow you away. I think context is important here. Like his season-long numbers, he never played a full season, and that's one of the red flags. We'll get into it, right? He got hurt a lot. He missed at least like 3 games, like every season. Topped 1,000 yards one time in 2024. What I will say though, like from an analytics standpoint, where he stands out, his yards per route run, 2.71 for his career. Anything over 2 is really good. 2024, he was at over 3. He took a little bit of a step back last year. Air yards per game, 92 air yards per game, he's getting the ball downfield. We like to see that for big plays, leads to fantasy points. Targets per route run, like basically he had 6 of his 9 games he played this year. He had 10 plus targets, so he's a target hog. Not in 2 of those games too, he left early. So like really 6 out of the 7 full games he played, he had 10 plus targets. So you love to see that. Gets a ton of first downs. So like 12.5% of his routes run ended in a first down. 19% of his routes run ended in a reception. All good stuff. Before I go more into like numbers or whatever, Holler, what are your thoughts on Tyson?
So I loved Tyson after the 24 season. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
everyone is watching or listening, but he had an outstanding season, 75 receptions, over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, right? They really regressed in 2025, and that was
Mm-hmm.
because of injuries and things like that. But he also had an injury himself, right? And he's had an injury almost every year, right? And so I think a lot of his athleticism is, if you guys didn't know, he's got a brother in the NBA. He also kind of started being in
Mm-hmm.
an NBA, or excuse me, a basketball player. And
Mm-hmm.
so like they have that in their genes. But like for me, there's a lot. I don't know about a lot the right word, but there are some red flags that I'm just kind of like, I've seen this before, right? And so Makai Lemon, why I love him so much is every year he got better, and I still think there's more room for growth. Right with
Right.
Tyson, is this as good as he's going to get? Right? Is an injury always going to be in the way? So for me, like there are question marks there. Like he can be a really good player, but is he going to stay on the field?
That's the thing, right? Because like even last year in like his best season, he missed the conference championship game and he missed their playoff game, right? So like the two biggest games that they played in last year, he missed, which does suck. I will say though, like some of his better games in college came when they played some of their best, teams. Like this year against Texas Tech, their only loss Texas Tech was to Arizona State, where he had 16 targets, 10 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Which Texas Tech had a monster defense. For those who don't follow college football, they basically bought every good player and had just fantastic defense. Um, some of the good things Tyson does, I think, alignment versatility, right? He played 2024, he basically played like 50-50 slaughter out wide. He played way more out wide this year than he did last year. So I think he can kind of do both depending on the offense, which is good to see, right? You like to see guys that aren't just like locked into one spot on the offense. I think he runs good routes. I think he has good hands, right? I think he catches the body control thing. I think you touched on that with some of his athleticism from his basketball background. That kind of translates, right? Like you see a lot of catches in the corner of the end zone or like this edge of the sideline where he just kind of can contort his body to stay in bounds, which is awesome to see. You love to see that kind of stuff. But yeah, the red flags are there, and it's like the lengthy injury history. He missed a ton of games, right? Like, he played 9 games out of, a possible 12 this year. He left 2 of those early. So, like, really, he played 7. He was a little over half the season. Now, granted, when he was on the field, he was fantastic. The year before, was his healthiest year, and he still missed 2 or 3 games. He missed an entire season early in his sophomore year. I think it was a torn
Yeah.
ACL or some kind of a big injury. But I mean, that's like obviously you can't predict injury, but like that's enough. Like 3 of his 4 years in college, he got banged up and missed significant time. Like that's enough that it raises a red flag. And then some of like on the field stuff, right? Like run blocking, he kind of does it. Sometimes he just looks disinterested. Some of
Yep.
it's like the offense he played in, right? Like the way that kind of that spread offense, like if the ball isn't designed to go to his side of the field, he really just kind of took plays off, which you don't love that either. Like so that kind of like leads to like an effort question. Man, I don't know. Like there's a lot to like in his profile, but there's some red flags where you're just like, dude, I don't know. And like I think for me, I think he's going to safely be the third wide receiver just
Oh
because
yeah.
I know Cardinal Tate and Makai Lemon, like, they feel pretty safe. Tyson is like, he could be like a phenomenal wide receiver in the NFL. He could legitimately be like a top like 5'10" player, like talent wise. He could also be like a Traylon Burks and just be gone, like out of the league in a couple of years. So it's like that range of outcomes is scary when you're talking about someone you're going to spend, the third, fourth, fifth overall pick on, right? So, um, yeah, dude, Tyson, he's scary.
Absolutely. And I think it's hilarious because when I go and I start to look at some players, right, I pull a bunch of different websites and things like that. And one of them, NFL Draft Buzz, had Jordan Tyson's comp as like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Igbuka, and one other guy that was like great. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit crazy. But
A
then when
little
you look at the
evergreen.
film, you're
Yeah.
like, he could do
Mhm.
that. But the biggest difference between those guys is they continue to get better and they stay on the field, right? There was
Mhm.
like at the end of last year, I was like, hey, cool. I'm glad Jordan Tyson's going back to school, right? He has things that he needs to work on. I don't think he could have came out, but like I think there's things he needs to work on. But I don't really think those things got better this year. Those things being drops. There's times that he takes plays off. You know,
Mhm.
there's like I think sometimes he lacks that football IQ, but the athleticism takes over, and so that's where when you're watching on film, it's like, wow, this guy could be really good. But that could is huge in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's like you don't wanna, uh, you don't want that question of like effort is like,
Yeah,
is he locked in to play? Because that's just like guys like that usually don't succeed in the NFL. Like they just don't. And obviously, I don't know what the full situation is with them. Maybe there's other stuff going on, right? Like, um, but dude, it makes me nervous. It's
yeah,
just an added question that I just don't want to deal with. And he kind of feels like the kind of guy that, like, if push comes to shove, and like, let's say I'm on the clock at 104, and Love, Tate, and Makai Lemon are gone, like, I might just take Mendoza and just call it a
yeah.
day and just not deal with it, right? Like, I don't know. He's tracking to be a player that I probably won't have a ton of because like I'm a little hesitant, I'm a little scared, unless he falls right to
Yep.
like
Yeah, if I can get him in the 8 to
7,
10
8.
range, then
Yeah.
sure, I'll take that shot, but I don't think he's gonna be there because I think he's gonna end up, by being selected no later than, like, 18, right? I think
Yeah.
the film is there, the things are there that the people are gonna be like, "I can't pass up this player," I don't think he's gonna be like a Jalen Reagor type, but I think he has that possibility, which is
Yeah,
the
he
scary
does.
part.
He does. I know when I was watching him, I kinda thought, like, because he's not overly fast, he's fast
Yeah,
enough, like, he kinda reminded me a little bit of, like, an Allen Robinson type of player. Um,
good comp, I like that.
his analytically in our Fez model, right, he lands right between Treylon Burks and Jahan Dotson, which is not
That's
what's
not
going
good.
here. There's not 2 names that you're like, "Hell yeah, dude. I wanna spend a first round pick on one of those 2 dudes." Um But, like, Allen Robinson makes you feel a little better. I've seen some I've seen him mocked all over the place. The popular thing I think is to him go, like, in the top 5, top 10. I think realistically, he goes in the teens,
Yeah.
when draft comes around, especially I'm be interested to see at the combine what his NFL like team interviews look like because I'm sure teams are going to ask him like, dude, like what happened on these plays,
Yeah.
and I'm curious to see how he handles that because it's coming. I think the worst thing in the world for him is like if he goes to like at 16 to the Jets, or if he
Oh, yeah.
goes to like 24 to Cleveland,
Yeah.
or one of those teams where it's just like it's already a disorganized franchise,
Saints, 8.
like they're not going to like push him and stay on him every week, to make sure he's motivated. Like that's like a huge red flag. If he does that, then like I'm pretty much not gonna have any of him, right? Like, um,
And I think, I pulled some things up and, the NFL mock database, they have like tons of mocks there, right? Jeremiah
yeah,
has him at, I think it's 16, 19, right?
yeah,
I've seen him at
19
16 a
Carolina,
couple times, right? I saw one at the Rams. Please don't do that. And I've seen a lot of them
but
mocked to the Saints, right? I'm okay if he goes to the Rams, but I'd rather than pick somebody else, right? I think he would be fine if he landed with the Rams. But I just hope they do something else there with that 13th pick.
sure,
But there's a lot of outcomes here. So I think that this is a player you want to really look at and watch, the combine, watch the interviews, kind of see what's happening and where the buzz is at.
mhm.
And then if he's starting to be, comped for or mocked to certain, Jets, Browns, yeah, I think then
That's
you're like, okay, I'm out.
that's too many red flags, and for that reason,
Yes.
I'm out.
Yep.
Yeah, like it's too much. But yeah, I think kind of final note, Tyson, like there's a lot to like there when you watch him on the field. Like his good is really good. Some of his red flags though are legit scary. And he has such a high variance of like this dude could be awesome or he could just be just, you know, Traylon Burks and just like he's just gonna
Yep.
burn a bunch of people. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see more as it comes to the combines and stuff. But that's Jordan Tyson for you. Next guy. This is my boy. Uh, he's gonna be my guy because he's gonna be a Raider here,
Yep.
more than likely. Fernando Mendoza, so quarterback at Indiana. He started at Cal, transferred to Indiana. As you know, he won. He went undefeated this year with Kurt Signetti. Indiana Hoosiers. That still feels weird to say that Indiana won a national championship in football. But he was fantastic, right? So he was 6'5", 225. Um, Daniel Jeremiah, Mendoza is his top ranked player. Obviously, he got mocked to Vegas. I think it's pretty locked that he's going to go to Vegas. When you look at his numbers, right, like they don't like this last year pops out, right? The 41 touchdowns is the big thing, and like the 9.3 yards per attempt, and you go, okay, that's awesome. The couple years prior at Cal, right, like 16 touchdowns, 14 touchdowns, only 3,000 yards passing last year. The year before, he didn't play the full season, so like, I'm not going to hold that against him. But 7.7 yards per attempt is, it's fine. I will say one of the biggest things for him, like looking at his stats, like he protected the ball incredibly well, right? Like he had 382 pass attempts last year, 390 the year before, and only six interceptions both years. Like that's fantastic. You like to see that. I think he's a better runner than he gets credit for. Um, the
Yeah.
last 2 years he went over 300 rushing yards. And the thing about that too is like college football is weird in that they count sack yardage against your rushing total. So he probably really ran for like close for like 500 yards. Um, that said, like he has 7 rushing touchdowns this year at Indiana too, which is pretty awesome. That's just kind of a high level overview. Or what are your thoughts on Mendoza? Is he the does he belong at the 101 in the real life? And then where do you feel comfortable taking him in rookie drafts?
He does belong at 101, right? The Raiders need a quarterback. He's the
Mm-hmm.
best quarterback. Do I think that's the best option? No. I think this is eerily similar to Cam Ward, right? They're fine. They kind of had I don't want to say similar path, but they go
Yeah.
from kind of small school all the way up to, then you make your national championship or you go to Miami, right? And you don't even make a conference championship. But I think it's very eerily similar, right? They go and they transfer and then they play really well. And like, okay, now just, of course, he's the best quarterback. He's going to be the 101, right? So I, he is not, I thought we got a little spoiled the like 23, 24. There was a lot of like, generational prospects that word's thrown around quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think we've had that the last 2 years. And also, I think the biggest thing is now with the landscape of college changing, so many transfers, right? There's always going to be this transfer that now has a really good year. His team is totally different than what he's ever played for, right? But what I will say about Mendoza is he rose to the occasion, right? And he got better. Like 6 interceptions with like 380 attempts is impressive, right? I know he had 5 fumbles, but again, we've talked about there's a little caveat there, right? So I don't really think he has fumbling issues, right? But
No.
I like you said, you hit it. I think he's a much better runner than what his numbers show. That run in the obviously the championship, very very
Yeah,
good run.
buddy.
If he can do that type of thing, right? I think it's obviously much different in the NFL. But I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. I don't know if it translates to fantasy relevance, right? But I think if Clint Kubiak is the coach and then we get a good offensive coordinator and things start to turn around, I
Mm-hmm.
think it could happen, right? Brock Bowers is there, Genty's there. They should get a wide receiver. I think good things will happen with Mendoza, and I actually feel there's more possibility with him to be a good NFL and even fantasy quarterback than I did with Cam Ward.
Yeah, so it's funny we mentioned Cam Ward because like his analytic, like the closest score and the fast score is Cam Ward for his analytics, right? And so he kind of fits that bucket. Totally different like style of player,
Yes.
but just like how they scored ended up basically being the same. So let's chat a little bit about what he does really well. I think he reads defenses and understands what defenses are doing to him and knows where to go with the ball like really well. And I think that can't be overstated. Like being able to understand coverages and what defenses are doing, like that's going to go such a long way. I know he kind of talked about it. It's funny he brought it up in one of his interviews after he won the national championship. He was like, "Yeah, like on this play, I was supposed to like run if they ran this coverage or throw if they ran, and they did like a half and half." And he said, screw it, I'm just gonna go for it. And I love that. Like he was
Yeah.
able to like recall and like know exactly what they were doing. One thing I noticed, so I was watching a lot of him last night. I feel like he does a lot of throws where like you see it, like he'll start throwing the ball before his receiver even breaks out of their routes, which is awesome. And then the other thing is like, so I happened to watch him right after I watched Kenyon Sadiq, and the difference of like ball placement and where the ball ended up to his receivers between him and Dante Moore was like night and day, dude. Like receivers never really had to adjust. It just was always right there for him. And that's huge too. That's why some of their receivers had such good yards up for the catch.
Yeah.
That's why they move the sticks. He throws the ball in a spot where they can get extra yardage. Man, I love what I saw from him. What stands out to you about Mendoza?
Yeah.
What do you
That
like?
unfortunately, that's what I was going to say, like where he places the ball, because that's
Sorry.
what I saw as well. No, you're good. And even some of those throws in the national championship, right? It was like, whew. But there are like he doesn't do that like consistently. And I also think there were a lot of really, really good pieces around him, right? And
Yeah.
the scheme at IU was very friendly, right? And so I think that needs to translate. And I think if Kubiak is the head coach, I'm guessing it's going to be very QB friendly, right? Kubiak is a very offensive mind, good
Right.
offensive mind, right? And so I think that is a good match. But I just think there are things that he is like good at, not great, right? And we need those great
Yeah. That's fair.
attributes to be a really, really good fantasy player. And so I think one thing is as well, like, some of those fumbles came off of sacks, right? And so he takes a lot of sacks, kind of like
He does.
Caleb Williams, right? They need to know how to either get out of the way or throw the ball away. Don't just take the sack, right? And that's huge in the NFL.
No, for sure. That's two of the things he kind of struggled with is like even when like he had one of the worst rates of like being sacked when defenses didn't send pressure.
Yep.
Which is just like you're just holding on to the ball too long. Like, that's just all there is, right? He did get better this year. That's one of the other red flags too. So he took a lot of sacks. He did really good against the blitz, like when he identified it. When he was under pressure, his accuracy dropped a ton, which is it makes sense. It happens with everyone. His was worse. He was kind of in the bottom 20%
Yeah.
of other quarterbacks, right? And it is what it is. But the other thing, he really only had the 1 year production, right? Which is
Yes.
this last year, which that always like with quarterbacks, that's always the thing that scares me, right? Like he had two kind of okay years at Cal, and then all of a sudden he just blows up and he's like fantastic at IU. It kind of reminds me a little bit, and not is a different player. He's a much better player, but like Kenny Pickett, if you remember, like he kind of sucked, and then all of a sudden was just like amazing his last year in college. Some of these like one hit wonders scare me a little bit. Now, obviously, I think he's a much better player um, than Pickett is, but like it's a red flag, right? Of like you only saw him do it like really well for like one season.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think one thing, like I talked about a little bit, is that the new landscape of college football, right?
sure.
The players around him were very good as well, so that also, added into that. But I like players getting better, and then like, is 2025 is that an outlier? We don't know, obviously, because you still, but
Right.
is like 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns more like it, or is it the 3,500 to 3,000 to 3,500 is not that big of a jump, but those touchdowns, that's
Touchdown
wild,
stronger. Yeah.
right? And so obviously, if you look back at the roster in 2024 of Cal, like they didn't have the same level
Yeah.
of
Cal
player that,
sucks. Let's be real.
yeah,
Like,
right. And so I mean, they're changing as well. They got quite a bit of people in the transfer portal. But anyway, right? I
mhm.
think it is it you take a little bit with a grain of salt, right? But that is I would say yellow flag, right? Like not red, not green, right? But it's like, okay, let me think about this a little bit. That was a
Yeah.
huge jump
Gives you
up.
some pause. Yeah.
Yeah, can he still do that? And I think that's why I have him firmly after Jeremiah Love, Mekhi Lemon, and Tate.
Okay. So if I not to put words in your mouth, but if I hear you, you basically the highest you take him is 4. Am I hearing that?
Yes, I
Okay.
reserve to write though on a depending on my team. Yeah,
Nope.
but
You got
no,
to
yes,
lock in right here on
I,
January 28th.
I feel more comfortable with those three players being more fantasy game changers than
Sure.
Mendoza. Right.
No,
I was
I get you.
very outspoken with Cam Ward that I thought he was just going to be a fine quarterback. Right. I don't want to say I was right because now they can make me look silly with Dayball and
Sure.
yeah, Sala, right? And so there's still a possibility there. But I just think Cam Ward, Fernando Mendoza, those type of players are good quarterbacks in the NFL, not really good for fantasy.
Yeah, I think really like year one, I'm kind of expecting like a low end QB2 numbers from him, probably in that 20 to 24 range. If all goes well, he could probably spike and be like, I don't
Yeah.
know, like 12 to 16.
And
Um,
and
but
that's really why I reserved the right to take him earlier, because it's like, okay, I like who they got at head coach. I like who they got at OC,
yeah,
right? Remember oh yeah, they have Brock Bowers. Oh yeah, and now they got an offensive lineman after in the second round or something. It's like, okay, things are actually moving. All right, let me
hmm
go ahead and grab him. I think maybe he's going to be he'll get better through the season. I can move him, right? I'll be able to move him for much more than I would a Carnell Tate or a Makai Lemon, right?
definitely. I think kind of the player comps I had for him was like a Brock Purdy or like a Sam Darnold, kind of guys who maybe don't
Yeah.
have like the best like arm strength in the world, but they just like they're good. They're good players, right? Like they're not like they're not going to be like stars or anything, but like they're good players. Both players have gone to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You can win with those kind
I
of guys,
Sam Darnold came to my mind, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to use that because he's in the Super Bowl, and
right?
but like if you think about his year, right? They had a really great year as a team, and he was fine as a fantasy quarterback. Had some really good games, right? And I think that's the type
Yeah.
of player that Mendoza can be.
And Darnold can run a little bit. No, he's not
Yeah.
like a great runner, but he's got a little bit of got a little wiggle to him.
Yep.
I think kind of just to summarize Mendoza, I think he's a pretty like safe-ish quarterback
Yeah.
prospect. Like I don't think he's gonna like totally bust. But I also don't think you're gonna get like elite production from him either. So like I think the range of outcomes for him are probably somewhere between a low end QB2 or a high end QB2. Some of that might be touchdown luck, but
Yeah.
you know.
And I feel like I would not like there's nothing that would change my mind that I wouldn't take him. Like I will always take him at 104 if he's there. Right?
Same. I
Like
think,
that
yeah,
is a cutoff for me right there. Like I don't think I'm looping all four of those players together right now, 101 to 104. But after that,
no, but
okay, there's a lot of question marks there. I got to get that last player that I know will rise in value that I can, if I need to, I can flip.
yeah, no, I love it. All right, last guy here, Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. I think I'm a lot higher on him than you are. Just looking at where you have him in your
Yeah.
rankings. 6'3", 245. He's kind of got that like that tweener build of like he's not quite a tight end. He's like kind of too big for a wide receiver. Played at Oregon. Daniel Jeremiah has him 21st on his top 50 list. His recent mock draft sent him to San Francisco at pick 27, which would be fantastic. He is
Oh
by
yeah.
far the best tight end prospect on my model for this class. Um, what are your thoughts on Sadiq? I'll let you go first because I know you're
Yeah.
lower on him than I am.
Yeah. So right now I have him lower just because I still have a lot of, question marks and
Mhm.
I do know that they had the last 2 years they've had an additional really good tight end, Terrence Ferguson last year, and now there's a young he's a sophomore, right? And so he's supposed to be really, really good as well. Okay. And so, when I first put my rankings together, I think about like who can make the most impact right away, whatever, right? And so I have them in a group together with like Concepcion, Boston, Emmett Johnson, Jadarian Price, right? And so right now I could take any of those guys and I'd feel good with it, right? Obviously things will change and I will definitely be putting Kenyon Sadiq above Denzel Boston, right? And so but if he was to land on the 49ers, I'd put him up probably over Tyson, right? I think he would slide in really well there. He's going to learn from George Kittle. Like that landing spot right there is good
Mhm.
enough for me to move him up, right? But again, I will definitely, obviously, dive into a little more film. obviously, of course, I've said it many times. I'll be watching his gauntlet, right? Things like that. He is a really
Gotta
good
watch the
player,
gauntlet.
and I love the like tweener tight ends, right? If you think about like Gadsden last year, right?
Harold
Things like that,
Fannin.
like Harold Fannin, right? These guys can be really good because that's the type of tight end I think that is like moving towards, right? And so I think he's okay blocking. I think he could improve there for sure.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you get a tweener tight end, right? They're not going to be very good at blocking, but if they're not very good at blocking, unfortunately, they don't stay on the field. So he definitely has to get better at blocking.
Yeah, and I think the effort is fine with him
Yeah.
on his blocking. I think it's more just I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe he's just not
Size.
strong enough. I don't, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just undersized. Um, I will say, like, they used him at Oregon a ton. Like, they did use him in line. They played him out in the slot quite a bit. They actually sent him out wide a decent amount, which is kind of crazy that he's like athletic enough to do that. That's one of his biggest like green flags is like the athleticism is like through
Yeah.
the roof. Like, if you just like flip on some of his like film, it's crazy. Like, they'll run like tight end screens to him and he'll just outrun dudes. Like,
Yeah.
there was a couple times where they tried to put like a linebacker on him to kind of like rub him on the inside 5 yards and the safety over the top, and he burned them both, dude, and like just blew by people. He's
Yeah.
fantastic that way. He gets a ton of first downs. His yak was insane. So like almost half of his total yards in 2025 came after the catch, just because he's just so athletic. Now I will say, and I've seen this and I'll just kind of just talk about it, right? So people are worried that like his yards per route run don't match other first round tight ends. His kind of just overall like stats, his peak year, right? 67 targets this year, 51 receptions, 560 yards, 8 touchdowns was fantastic. But like the yardage and the catches, like it doesn't quite add up to some of the other tight ends we've seen get first round draft capital. I understand that. I think some of it is just the way Oregon's offense is. I think the context is important there that like he still led the team in targets this past season at Oregon. It's just and some of how they used them too. They used them kind of closer to the line of scrimmage and like kind of underneath, as opposed to like throwing him deeper passes, which would have led to a higher yards per route run. It is what it is. Um, it's just kind of the product of the offense. I also will say, like, and I kind of alluded to it when we're talking about Mendoza, Dante Moore, he left a lot of balls that were not great spots for him. Where Sadiq, if he just like hit him in stride, could have gotten way more yardage, but he had to like jump
Yeah.
up and make these kind of crazy catches, which to his credit, he did. Um, that worries me. I mean, obviously, it depends on where he goes, but like there's a lot of left on the table. I think Sadiq can just I think he can get better, right? Like I think he's just kind of starting to hit like scratch the some of his talent. And I think he can get even better, which is exciting. Um
Yeah. And I
I
think
mentioned
that's,
the oh go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's what I think is huge in the fact that that's why I think he'll rise up in rookie drafts, right? It's like people are gonna see that, okay, wow,
Mhm.
this guy is, still got a lot of bit like room for growth. And I think he will continue to. And then if he ends up on the 49ers, well, then even better,
Yeah.
right? Like mainly because Kittle's there. And I think that would be a really good player to kind of teach him the way and right. And so Kittle's just an awesome tight end, right? And so I think that's like the best situation in my opinion. Because we know he's older, we know it's going to take some time for him to come back, and we know there's going to be a spot for Sadiq in the beginning of the year, right? And so then now,
Mhm.
okay, maybe he gains steam, right? And then either you just hold, or now you got a piece to move for, maybe a tight end that is really usually really good, but maybe down.
Yeah, I think there's like looking at the first round, I think there's a few it's kind of hard to project where he's going to go,
Yep.
right? Like he's a very kind of like specific tight end that like someone's going to have a use of like okay, we know how we're going to use him. There's some teams I trust more than others to do that. Like I think obviously the 49ers makes a ton of sense. I think the Chiefs at 9, I think that's probably too high for him, but if maybe they trade back to try to get him, I think that would make a ton of sense. I think the Bucks at 15 makes a lot of sense
Mm,
too in that offense with Baker Mayfield. Um, Minnesota, if they can get a quarterback that doesn't suck, would be awesome. I think. Um, I know the Eagles at 23. Dallas Goddard's getting older. I think they could use an athletic tight end like that. There's some that scare me a little bit, like Carolina at 19. I wouldn't love that. They could use a tight end. The
yeah, but I think
Texans at
it
28. Like,
Yeah, both those two spots right there, crowded, right? They got, I mean,
yeah,
Jatavian Sanders is not like this all-world tight end, but he's good, right?
he's good enough, right?
If
Yeah,
Sadiq lands there, they're gonna be like, okay, cool, I have another really good tight end. I'll just use both of them, whatever, right? They do different things, both very athletic, but they do different things, right? And so that also worries me, right? But I look at my rankings, I look at the players that are around him. It's like Concepcion, Boston, Emmett Johnson. There's a lot of question marks still. Jadarian Price, I like him a lot, but I feel more comfortable with Sadiq than Jadarian Price.
yeah. So I know you have him more like in the back half of your first round. I have him right like more in the middle, like in that
Yeah,
like 6, 7 range of tight end. And I think some of that is just like historically the first round tight ends are really good. If he does get that first round draft capital, I think that's where he ends up. If he falls to the second round, maybe
yeah,
I'll probably jump him back to like the back half of the first round too. Um, right now, I have him kind of in that tight end 6 to 10 tier, which is feels a little high. Maybe that's a little bit drinking the Kool-Aid on him. I really like what I've seen, and I kind of when I watch him, I kind of want to see like the best of him, which I think is still to come.
yeah.
There's still the possibility that he doesn't go to a good spot, and he just never kind of like develops into anything, right? And so that's a very real possibility with him. I put on his like fantasy kind of expectation year one, he could with a good landing spot, he could have a really like a good spike year of like a Harold Fannin type of production, or he could be like a Terrence Ferguson where he ends up in like a really crowded room and it just takes him a while to get on the field. Like that's a very real possibility too, right? So I don't know.
And I,
Oh, I think you were gonna say something, yeah.
and I was just gonna say, I think that's part of why we're like, oh, 49ers is amazing. Like I could make the same argument with the Eagles, right? I know Dallas Goedert's not injured, but the guy misses like every other game. So there's
Yeah.
going to be opportunity there, right? I
I think he's a
think
free agent too.
thank you. Yeah. And I think that's like the biggest thing. Even if he were to end up at the back end, like with the Patriots, I feel like that would be a really good landing
Hmm.
spot as well. So there are really good options there at the back end of the first. I worry if he does get taken early on, Saints, you know, I worry a little bit with the Vikings, like you said. Panthers, definitely I worry about. So definitely landing spot is going to be huge for me. But I do think, he is probably one of the top probably 5 to 8 players in this draft.
Yeah, he's really good. It's just I think the landing spot's gonna mean a ton for him, and
Yep.
I think it's gonna depend on kind of what you expect year one and ultimately where you draft him. Like I think in how you handle and there's curious. 'Cause I think we both play in a couple leagues like this where you draft before the NFL draft. It's gonna be interesting where he goes. I think I'm gonna probably steer more optimistic and try to take him like
Yeah.
6-ish range. Where and that may come to bite me, but hopefully he lands somewhere good. I think the player comp I had for him was Evan Ingram. Kind of a guy is not necessarily known for his blocking. He's a good receiver, athletic. His analytic comp, he was pretty close to like Dalton Kincaid. Is how they kind of graded out, which I think that's also pretty. Kincaid had a really nice year this year.
He did.
Um, man, I think just kind of to sum up, Sadiq, like he's a really talented player. There's some red flags, some things that kind of make you nervous. I'm a believer in his talent. I think it's really just going to ultimately depend. Like, does he go somewhere good and he ends up closer to like the top half of the first round, or does he go somewhere maybe where the landing spot scares you, and then you end up drafting him more in the back half of your rookie draft? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. You took it best for me. Like I just like I said earlier, I think landing spot here is going to be huge, and then kind of how he goes through the process of the interviews and draft combine, things like that.
and the gauntlet.
Yep. Absolutely.
You got to see the gauntlet, man. You
Yep.
can't have wobbly lines. Um, all right, I think so. This weekend is the Senior Bowl, so we might cover some of the Senior Bowl risers next year, or sorry, next week, not next year. Goodness gracious. But we'll probably continue with some extra prospects too. Hopefully the Raiders. Well, actually, they can't hire Clint Kubiak yet, but maybe we'll get another head coaching hire. Maybe we'll get some OCs being hired. I know Philly still has an opening. I know Baltimore. There's some other places that need coaches, so maybe we'll get some news there. But yeah, stick with us, and we'll continue on this journey this offseason. There's a lot of good stuff coming out. But Holler, anything else you wanna hit before we get off the show?
That's it. I think maybe we'll do a little update to our rankings for the rookies after the Senior Bowl. And then try to get a few more players in there. And then once we do that, we'll get another mock going.
Yeah, we did the mock draft in the Discord a week and a half ago.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Definitely hop in the Discord and check that out. That was fun. We did a little 2-rounder, but definitely good. And then hopefully Sleeper will update their database with some of the rookies, and we can start doing some mock drafts on there too. That was a good time. But
absolutely.
But for now, that's all we got. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, join the Discord. Hit the link for join our Patreon. It means a lot to us if you support us. But that's it for now. Peace out.
Peace.